The more you explain, the weaker you appear. The more you react, the more you give away your power. And the more you try to prove yourself, the clearer it becomes that someone has touched your weakness. Be honest. In a world full of noise, stillness is no longer passive. It is strategy. When your words are twisted, when the truth becomes ammunition, when your reactions become their entertainment, it is no longer a conversation. It is a psychological game, and the louder you get, the faster you lose. But here's the point. You don't have to respond. You don't have to shout to be heard. You don't have to explain to prove you are right. You only need one thing, stillness and time. Because the moment you stop, the law of cause and effect begins to work. You are still, but the universe is not. The truth has a natural gravity, and it always returns to its rightful place. In this writing, we will analyze 7 situations in which a wise person chooses absolute silence. Not out of fear, but out of strength, to protect energy, to maintain dignity, and to let the weight of the opponent's actions crush themselves without you lifting a finger. Because silence is not the absence of words, but the presence of control. Read to the end, because the last situation will forever change the way you view stillness. 1. When being slandered. Nothing is more unjust than being lied about. Your first instinct is to defend yourself, to tell your story, to prove you are not what they say you are. But the truth is, no one wants to listen. The more you explain, the more suspicious you appear. The more you clarify, the more they create chaos. Because those who spread lies do not seek truth. They want your reaction. They want to shake your calm. They want to see you stumble. They want you to play the role of the innocent so they can twist it into guilt. And here is the trap. If you react, you have lost. Stoic philosophy draws the boundary here. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If it is not true, do not say it. If it is not right, do not do it, that's all." No begging, no explaining. You live by your integrity, not by the version of the story they fabricate. Because truth has one thing that lies will never have: endurance. Lies spread fast, but also die fast. The truth takes time, but needs no defense. It reveals itself in time. Illustration story. There was a man named Juk. He was slandered at work for something he did not do. Rumors spread, colleagues shunned him. His first instinct was to prove his innocence. But instead he chose silence. He calmly did his job well and let his actions speak. Weeks later, the truth was revealed. The slanderer was exposed for previous schemes. And Juk, by not responding, did not lose face. He rose above the noise and maintained dignity. That is the strength of Stoicism. What to do when slandered? First, trust the long game. Lies are loud, but the truth is enduring. Let time do its quiet work. Second, hold on to your values. When you know who you are, outside noise cannot reach you. Third, let cause and effect speak. Liars often live in constant drama. Sooner or later, they trap themselves. Finally, silence is not surrender, it is self-respect. You are not avoiding. You are rising above the noise, the pettiness, the lies. Let them talk, let them weave, and let truth do what it always does. Return. 2. When being betrayed. Betrayal does not only hurt, it shakes the whole ground beneath your feet. It comes from those you trust, friends, lovers, family. When betrayed, you want to confront, to ask, why did you do it? Or even beg, do you know what you've done? But here is the harsh truth. The betrayer has already justified their actions in their head. They do not see their fault. Or worse, they see it but do not care. And the more you seek explanation, the more you wound yourself. When someone betrays you, what they really want is your energy, your reaction, your pain, and your chaos. Why? Because it gives them power, proving they matter. So what happens when you give them nothing? No anger, no revenge, no explanation, just silence. That is when they realize they have not only lost your words, but also your soul. Seneca once said, "A gem cannot be polished without friction, nor a man perfected without trials." Betrayal is friction. It is painful, but it clarifies everything. It separates what is real and what is convenient, and it forces you to face a hard truth. Not everyone you love deserves to stay by your side. Illustration story. There was a woman named Lynn. She had a best friend for more than a decade. They shared everything, dreams, doubts, victories. But one day, Lynn discovered her friend betrayed her, revealed her secret, sabotaged her success. Why? Jealousy, insecurity, ego. At first, Lynn wanted to confront, to unload everything, to make her friend feel the pain she caused. But instead, she chose silence. No arguments, no drama, just quietly walked away. And what happened? The friend expected a fight, prepared for chaos, but received only absence. And that silence haunted her, because silence has weight. It echoes louder than any quarrel. What to do when betrayed? First, accept their true self. Do not cling to the image you once thought of them. That image no longer exists. Second, do not waste effort on those who dismiss your value. You do not need to make them understand what they intentionally ignore. Third, leave without explanation. Silence forces them to face themselves, which is what a betrayer fears most. In the end, you are not the loser. They are for losing someone loyal, honest, and rare. Let them live with that truth, not through punishment, but through your absence and peace. 3. When being insulted. Insults are cheap. That's why the weak use them. When someone insults you through sarcasm, passive aggression, or direct jab, they are not seeking truth. They want to provoke you. They want your reaction, because that reaction is their validation. The moment you respond, raise your voice, or defend yourself, you hand them exactly what they wanted: control. No matter how clever your response, if you react, you are playing their game. And most people do not realize you do not need to win an argument. You only need not to join it. Marcus Aurelius once said, "The best revenge is not to be like your enemy." When someone insults you, they are inviting you down to their level, hoping you will abandon dignity and roll in the mud with them. But a Stoic does not live in the mud. They do not stumble. They do not respond. They simply observe, calm, unshaken. Illustration story. There was a man named Jat. He had just been promoted, deservedly, at a company event. A jealous colleague attacked him in public. Oh, so now they promote just anyone, huh? All eyes turned to Jat, waiting for a reaction. But he did not argue, did not defend. He looked his colleague straight in the eye, smiled slightly, and said nothing. Just silence, no drama, no tension. And in that moment, Jat not only won the whole room, he won the entire battle. Silence stripped the power from the other. Nothing frustrates an insulter more than being ignored. What to do when insulted? First, recognize what they seek. They do not want truth. They want to disrupt your peace. Do not give them satisfaction. Second, let silence speak. When you remain unshaken, your calm voice sends a stronger message than uncontrolled words. You do not control me. Third, hold your ground. Confidence does not argue. Self-respect does not explain. When you refuse to lower yourself, they gain nothing. Finally, you do not need to respond to their noise. You need only to master your silence, because true strength never needs to shout. 4. When facing those who play the victim. Some people do not want resolution, they want attention. They do not want to solve problems. They want to control the story. And the most effective way to do that is to play the victim. They rewrite the story, erase their role, twist the truth, shed tears, and suddenly you are the villain. The more you explain, the worse it gets. To outsiders, it looks like you are attacking a suffering soul. They have flipped the script. You are now the aggressor. They are the poor, misunderstood victim. This is not conflict, it is theatre, and you have been cast as the villain. Stoic philosophy warns us of this trap. Epictetus once said, "Complaining is always useless, never appropriate." Those who play the victim do not complain to seek solutions. They complain to gain sympathy. And if you step in to defend yourself, you are feeding their drama. The only way to win is silence. Illustration story. There was a woman named Nu. She had a colleague who always twisted the truth. Whenever held accountable, the colleague cried, blamed others, and shifted the story. Nu tried to hold logic, provide evidence, stay calm, explain the truth. But everything backfired. While Nu spoke truth, the other played emotions. And in the eyes of others, emotions beat reason. So Nu stopped. No defense, no rebuttal, only silence. And over time, the truth surfaced. People began to see the pattern. The colleague always had a sad story, always a new enemy, always a new injustice. And eventually, the play collapsed. What to do when facing a victim player? First, do not defend. They are not listening, they are performing. The audience loves drama. Do not fuel it. Second, keep emotional distance. Observe, do not absorb. Let them drown in the chaos they create. Third, trust cause and repetition. People may believe them once, even twice, but patterns do not lie. In the end, the mask falls. You owe no clarity to those who profit from disorder. Let them act, let them gather an audience, let them run their script. Because eventually, the play ends, and your silence is the curtain drawn. 5. When your value is ignored. The greatest insult is not what they say about you, but what they no longer notice. You show up, you give, you care, you call, you text, you offer your presence. But in return, you get silence, indifference, neglect. No drama, no grand betrayal, just the the erosion of your value in their eyes. And here is the bitter truth. The more you try to prove your worth, the less they see it. Because people do not value what is always available. They value what they fear losing. When you are always present, always initiating, you become background noise in their world. Not essential, but invisible. This is when Stoic philosophy hands the power back to you. Seneca once said, "Time discovers truth. And sometimes the truth they must discover is your absence." Illustration story. There was a man named Duff. He was always consistent. He called friends, remembered birthdays. His partner always knew he cared, but slowly he noticed. No one asked about his day. No one initiated contact unless he did first. If he stopped calling, days turned into weeks of silence. That was when he realized he was not valued, only convenient. So he decided, no arguing, no speeches, just stopped. The result? Those who truly cared reached out. Those who did not disappeared, and that was his answer. What to do when your value is ignored? First, stop chasing. If they cannot see your worth when you are present, let them feel it when you are gone. Second, say nothing. Silence forces recognition. When your presence vanishes, your value becomes clear. Third, observe who makes effort. The ones who matter will not leave mindless. They will notice the change and move toward you, not away. In the end, you do not prove your worth with effort, but with distance, because those worthy of your energy will feel your silence, and those who are not never deserve it. 6. And being provoked. Some people do not want peace. They want reaction. They poke. They say things they know will hurt. Not because they are brave, but because it is the only way they feel power. The moment you waver, they win. The moment you argue, they are fueled. The moment you let emotion burst, they know they have control. The truth most people miss. Their goal is not conflict, but control. They want to break your composure, make you act on their emotions. If they provoke you, they become the puppeteer behind the fake smile. But here is where stoicism becomes the shield. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." That is the core of mastery. You cannot stop others from provoking you, but you can refuse to give them what they crave most, your reaction. Illustration story. There was a man named Fong. He had a colleague who thrived on chaos. Every meeting, every interaction came with a jab, a sarcastic comment, a subtle insult, always vague enough to avoid consequence. At first, Fong defended himself, argued, explained, each time he left alone, until one day he changed. Next time his colleague provoked, Fong looked straight into his eyes, smiled slightly, nodded calmly, and said nothing, just silence. No tension, no anger, only detachment. The colleague faltered. When you are used to playing with fire, you do not know what to do when the match won't light. Eventually he gave up, because without fuel, even the most toxic flame dies. What to do when provoked? First, recognize the pattern. Repetition reveals motive. If someone always stirs conflict, it is not personal, it is strategy. Second, hold your composure. Do not let emotional bait drag you off balance. You control your breath, your voice, your presence. Third, let calm be your power. The more unshaken you are, the more powerless they feel. In the end, not everything that provokes you deserves your energy. Not every opponent deserves your response. The strongest person in the room is not the loudest. It is the one no one can shake, because their silence is not emptiness but armor. 7. When they regret losing you. Regret is loud, but silence is louder. There is a moment, after they dismissed you, after they overlooked your value, after they thought you would always be there, when they realize you are gone, and the silence they once ignored now becomes deafening. They begin to remember how you listened, how you showed up, how you gave more than you received, and they realize they did not just lose a person, they lost a presence, a light, a constancy. But by then it is too late. What you must understand is this. If someone only begins to value you after you are gone, they never truly valued you when you were there. And the worst thing you can do is return just because they finally realized. Epictetus once said, "No one is free who is not master of himself." And mastery means you do not return to places that hurt you. You do not lower your standards to soothe their guilt. You do not explain your silence. You let it speak for you. Illustration story. There was a woman named Tran. She gave everything to her relationship, time, love, energy. But her partner grew complacent, took her for granted, assumed her presence was permanent. Until one day she left. No fight, no breakdown, no emotion, just quietly left. At first he did not care. But as weeks passed, months passed, unanswered calls piled up. The absence of someone he never realized he needed until she no longer belonged to him. He begged, apologized, promised change. But Tran had healed in silence, and that silence became her freedom. What to do when someone regrets losing you? First, do not give them an easy way back. If your value was once invisible, your absence must now be undeniable. Second, resist the urge to explain. Let them feel the weight of their actions without you softening it with words. Third, remain firm in your silence, not for revenge, but for self-respect. In the end, they had their chance, and they wasted it. Now let them face that truth alone, because your silence is not punishment, but wisdom. It says, "You cannot walk in and out of my life and still expect the door to stay open." Let them regret, let them remember, but do not let them return. You owe them no second chance. You owe yourself peace. You do not need to shout to be heard. You do not need to fight to win. And you do not need words to make a statement. In a world addicted to noise, silence is the loudest thing. It is not weakness, not surrender. It is the language of those who no longer need validation. Because when you are silent, you reclaim your power. You step out of the trap. You let time, truth, and cause and effect finish the sentence you chose not to write. A Stoic does not chase approval. They do not beg for release. They do not collapse under noise. They simply step back and let the universe do what it does best, restore balance. So next time someone lies, betrays, insults, provokes, or regrets, do not respond, do not explain, do not perform. Just observe and wait, because cause and effect does not need your help. It only needs your silence. If this message resonates with you, if you found truth between these lines, do not just scroll past. Subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for the next powerful video.